Okay, thank you all so much for joining us today for the Air Quality Technical Committee of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. I don't know why I'm in weird voice mode, but I am. So let us call to order at 1:01 and establish a quorum. I am just real quick going to call on everybody that I see in the meeting. If I miss you, please let me know. I see that I've got Carly Bauman, Ayana Polete Brooks, Andy Gunning, Chris Welch, Jarrett Critch, John Leosatos, Katie Helms, Kevin Shrewsbury, Kevin Storms, Marla Lucky, Monty McVeigh, and Rich Coffin. Did I miss anybody? Okay, and Victoria Chavez is coming in as we speak. So we are called to order for public comments. Is there anyone here who'd like to say anything about an item that is not on the agenda? We have a silent group. I do want to speak up and say, so we do have a legislative committee of our board members who reviews legislation as it impacts PPACG's programs and our priorities, including air quality. At this point, I did not prepare any comments on bills to bring to you guys. As those move forward, I anticipate that there will be one or two that I may either share or send out to you at our next meeting, just as things are continuing to change.
Jessica, yeah. Jump in real quick. Hi, this is Andy. Hey, one bill that came up, and not sure how we want to handle that, if we do want to chat about it today or not, and we can do it later on the agenda, but the lawnmower bill, which I forget the number, Senate Bill 138, I think, impacts the non-attainment areas a little bit more than those of us that are in attainment for federal pollutants, but it does have an impact on us as well. We talked about it with our legislative committee Monday. We mentioned that we're getting the AQTC together this week and suggested maybe we get your preliminary kind of feedback. So not sure, do we want to do that today, Jessica, or?
I don't think that's a bad idea. I was actually going to bring that up during our Ozone Advance plan updates. Perfect. Just because we've talked about some ways we can be plugging that in.
Good, makes sense. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything they want to chime in? Okay, we are on consent items. Does anyone have any comments or feedback on the agenda or the minutes from our last meeting? Okay, then I will need a motion and a second on that. Anyone?
This is Kevin Shrewsbury. I move to approve the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Victoria Chavez, I'll second.
Thank you. And all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. With that, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our information item, which is an update on the greenhouse gas emissions rulemaking. John Leosatos in our office has been, I think, doing more meetings than any human ever voluntarily signs up for. So John, if you can give us a little bit of information and on an update on what's been going on.
Yeah, and Andy, feel free to jump in, because I think we were planning on tag team in this. So the SB 260 required CDOT to go through a rulemaking process. And I believe we did come to you guys early on and kind of let you know what was going on there. And then after the CDOT rulemaking process was over, I think that's when we had the giant windstorm. So we kind of missed that meeting, but moved on. But the GHG rulemaking has passed through the Transportation Commission, and now at this point, the way it was worded was that they said, hey, well, these are the things you have to do, but we're going to kind of figure out some of the mitigation policies as well as some of the modeling assumptions afterwards. And that's what we've been doing now for the last couple of months with CDOT is there is a technical review committee that looks at the modeling. And as Jessica mentioned, I attend that along with Will Mast, our modeling lead. And then there's also a policy committee to talk about the mitigation measures, what mitigation measures are appropriate, and how should they be incorporated into the methodology of the plan. And then finally, there's an overall committee to, I think they call it the interagency review committee, and that will look at individual jurisdictions if they have changes to their definition of what regionally significant is. So at this point, there's nothing really new to talk about other than there's a whole bunch of committees meeting and trying to iron these things out. On one hand, they try to do things that are meaningful, but on the other hand, they want to do things that are actually realistic and actually do move the needle on things, which is kind of very difficult. So at this point, the three folks that are first in the hopper to develop a compliant plan is DRCOG, North Front Range, and CDOT. So they're trying to get all this work done, I believe, in March, but not necessarily the 1st of March. I think they have to be done by the, oh, excuse me, where's it, May? Excuse me, April, May. I think it may be the May Transportation Commission meeting, but Andy, do you remember? Now I'm second guessing myself. It was March or May. It starts with an M. So
May, but I don't know.
It's May.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah. So we're all working very diligently to come up with the actual sort of rules because again, DRCOG, North Front Range, and CDOT all need to update their plans this year to show compliance with the overall rulemaking. So with that, happy to answer any questions. Or Andy, do you have anything that I missed?
Just one thing I'll mention. That is good job overview of what all is going on there. One thing I'll mention is that with the mitigation measures that are coming down pretty soon in the next month or so, John's been working with CDOT, like you mentioned, on the mitigation policy group. That's going to be important for some other work that we're doing with this group with Ozone, because I think there's some co-benefits there with some of the mitigation projects that we're going to have to fund in our long-range transportation plan. Those will help our greenhouse gas emission reductions that are now required, but it will also help us potentially on the ozone side as well, since transportation emissions are a big part of our ground level ozone numbers. So I think that'll be of interest. So once we get a draft of that mitigation policy, we'll bring it to this group. Hopefully we have something next month, I would think, in the month of March. So we'll definitely share that with you. But that's all I've got. I know, Victoria, you were sort of tracking this as well. Any comments that you or Rick, Coffin, or others may have?
No, I think you're right on, Andy. I was going to chime in that those mitigation measures are supposed to be available for public review in March, and I think it would be a great idea for this committee to look at those. So you and I are on the same page there. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, good job. Great job, John. And, you know, the only other thing I would mention related to CDOT's rule is that, you know, there's a section in there that directs the Air Pollution Control Division at CPACG to basically like evaluate and verify technical data that's included in all these various transportation planning documents that are kind of subject to the regulation. And I believe that the Air Quality Control Commission plans to issue a resolution that basically outlines how the Air Division will go about doing that. And I think that resolution is tentatively scheduled to be considered at the May Air Quality Control Commission meeting. So the timing will line up with the Transportation Committee meeting in May. I think they may be even during the same week, if I'm not wrong about that. But so basically, I think the plan is if they're going forward with that, we hope to share a draft of the resolution with all the MPOs beforehand, so you can review it, and if you have any comments, provide that. But you know, for any document like this that's going before the commission or you know, being adopted by the commission, there will be a public comment period as well, like an official public comment period, which is probably 30 days. So as all this, you know, develops and progresses, we'll be in touch about all that. But, you know, a resolution, it's not really a legal document. It's non-binding. It's more of just, you know, this is the process. And it's more just to have something like in writing so that 5 years from now, you know, we can see what the intention was for the commission, you know, for the commission's thoughts on how the division should go forward with this, because the role isn't that detailed as far as what the division's role will be. So just wanted to give a heads up about that.
Thank you very much, Rick. Did anyone have any other questions for John or Andy or even Rick about the greenhouse gas emissions rulemaking going on? Okay. My silent group. We are going to go on to item 5A, which is a discussion on the Ozone Advance Action Plan. Just as a recap for everyone, in January of 2020, the PPACG Environmental Planning Department, at the time Samantha Bailey, who was wonderful, committed to the Voluntary Ozone Advance Program coordinated by EPA. It promotes local actions in attainment areas to reduce ozone pollution to help us maintain the national ambient air quality standards. The program encourages and supports proactive steps to keep the air clean. After a year of work with you guys very closely, the plan was written and approved by the PPACG Board of Directors in December 2020 and submitted to the EPA in January 2021. The plan highlighted the strategies that AQTC, you guys, developed through those 2020 meetings. And the overarching themes that were selected were outreach and education, data collection, and administrative work. And I gave some of the details that we called out in that plan within your memo. Creating a community of practice group to promote air quality education, air quality lesson plans for K-12 school districts, audience-specific air quality resources for local governments, business, and the general public, social media guides, communications plan, annual reports to display those visual air quality data and trends, visual display of the local air quality monitors, surveying local businesses, collecting data on the number of vehicles and their types, collecting data on the number of transit passengers, and then on the inside, applying for air quality funding, hiring interns, looking for collaborative opportunities, and really, in general, working together. In the plan, we really called out that reducing ozone pollution takes more than just PPACG, and all of you as member organizations within the Air Quality Technical Committee coordinate your own projects within your agencies or with other communities you serve. As we are getting ready to kind of send an update to the EPA on what's happening with PPACG's Ozone Advance plan, we wanted to reach out and have a discussion with you all. What have your organizations been doing supporting air quality making growth in those areas. We all know the last few years have been a little bit, by a little bit, I mean very different because of the restrictions on community events and things like that. But what have you been doing? What's interesting? And Andy and I had brought up briefly during public comment that there is some legislation on the table right now that we're casually referring to as a lawnmower bill, because one of the things it includes is talking about programs like the RAC told us about last month to support the replacement of current gas-powered lawn equipment with electric. So that's something that I think, Andy, do you want to chat about that now or bring that up after I try to make everybody talk?
Let's maybe get some other feedback first, and then we can dig into that, because we can also, part of this conversation too, interested not just in what you're currently doing within your organizations, but what are some other kind of stretch goals or initiatives or new things that we could engage with throughout the region, dealing with our difficult ozone numbers that we've seen the past 2 summers, especially, really want us to see how we can kind of lean into this and look at some strategies, short-term, long-term, to help us manage emissions and reduce emissions, and take a good list of options together to our board and let them know that these are some things that we think could really make a difference. So curious in what that conversation may look like. Then we can maybe circle back and wrap it up with a discussion around the Senate bill that's out there. Or if something comes up sooner where it ties in with the lawnmower bill, we can certainly talk about it then. But yeah, kind of curious what folks may have in mind, what you're doing within your current jurisdiction, and what are some other possibilities we might want to engage in. And just to kind of get things going, one idea that we've talked about more on the greenhouse gas emissions reduction side, but it ties in with ozone as well, is really trying to lean into a voluntary trip reduction program with major employers in the region, trying to work with key employers and key locations across the region that have large employment sectors in one concentrated area, where we can promote more use of transit and van pools and carpools. Also looking at ways we can promote work from home policies to stick in place, once and finally beyond the pandemic, want to see those practices stick as well, because those can help us as far as peak hour congestion. So that's just one example. We've been having conversations with MMT and the Chamber of Commerce, EDC around. So just kind of curious if you have thoughts about other kind of bigger picture, other initiatives like that we might want to embrace and try to dig into. Would love to hear what your thoughts might be.
Hi, Andy. This is Monty McVeigh. As you probably know, with the new administration, there's been several executive orders that's pushing federal agencies to do greening of our fleets. So I know there's going to be a lot of work with electrification of our blue fleets on our military bases. We don't have anybody currently online today that works in our transportation segment that could talk to some of the details, but I know that will definitely be an effort moving forward.
Okay, good to hear. Thanks, Monty.
Are any of the other bases seeing things like that, or is that universal? Or
Yeah, it's universal to all federal agencies. Our limiting factor is going to be our supplier, so all of our fleet acquisition typically goes through GSA. So like I said, that could be a limiting factor for us in terms of what they have access to with their availability.
okay.
Hey, Jessica, it's Victoria.
Okay.
So the Board of County Commissioners passed the CPACE Program, Colorado Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. And with the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Corporation, they provide for loans to help finance energy efficiency and renewable energy and water conservation improvements for commercial properties. So that's one of the things that El Paso County has done.
Would you be able to either send me information or put something in the chat about it so I can link through so I can get a little more details on that? Because
I'll shoot you an email.
way above my head technical speech.
Yeah, no, I'll shoot you an email with it.
Awesome.
Well, this is Kevin Storms. I'm going to dovetail on, I think, what Andy might have brought up, but let me couch that with an intro. I lived in Southern California for 26 years, and then, through most of my career doing air compliance and permitting multiple different locations and industries, but living there is an experience, right? And then moving here 6 years ago, I can tell you that we probably could push a lot harder on getting carpooling and van pooling going. The area has a lot of corridors that I think are conducive. So I think that would aid in that. So I'm trying to think of maybe another little footnote on that might be, I'm currently reading through the book Atomic Habits, and one of the points that are made is that to start a habit, it's got to be attractive and it's got to be easy. And I think right now, trying to link up to do carpooling and van pooling, or even just carpooling, I think it's very difficult. So I think if that could be looked at, every day when I drive in on the 94, I see dozens and dozens of vehicles driving toward Shrewsbury Air Force Base or toward the east, probably in the order of between, I lose count after 50 to 100. So it just makes me think about, we don't need mass transit, multi-billion-dollar mass transit systems to reduce the number of vehicles on the road, which is going to have much more of an impact than maybe electrifying, 2% of the fleets or 5% of the fleets, with our population exploding for the next 10 to 20 years. So that's kind of something to ponder.
Okay.
This is Kevin Shrewsbury with Carl Springs Utilities. We continue on our sustainable energy plan, which is the implementation of the last IRP that came out that was approved by our board. That includes projects like our updated substation and transmission to be able to support the decommissioning of the Drake power plant. Both Drake power plant unit 6 and 7 are now on natural gas only. And we are in the process, or both of those units obviously by rule will be decommissioned at no later than the end of this calendar year. And to allow that to happen, we're also in construction with the TNGG, the temporary natural gas units being installed at Drake. That's 6 simple cycle combustion turbines being installed at Drake. We're in construction right now with delivery of the units and startup and commissioning later this year. We're also going into construction on some of our other projects that will allow the stabilization of our grid to allow Drake for decommissioning. We also have made progress on our CEP and our clean heat plan, and Chris Welch is intimately involved with those, and I'll let him kind of give a little more details on that.
Thanks, Kevin. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so the clean energy plan is something that stems back to legislation passed in 2019 that kind of established some of, House Bill 19-1261 that established statewide greenhouse gas reduction goals with some incorporation of this, concept of a clean energy plan. So to that end, we had last year submitted a notification of intent to file a clean energy plan with the state. And what that clean energy plan is it commits us to an 80% greenhouse gas reduction by 2030 relative to a 2005 baseline, as caused by our retail electric sales in the state of Colorado. So pretty, drastic reductions, pretty exciting commitment. So the kind of next step from there was we submitted all of our data and supporting information to the state, a lot of that stemming back to work done in the integrated resource plan that Kevin mentioned towards the tail end of last year. And the state's in the process of performing a review, and the state being the Air Pollution Control Division staff, such that they can verify our submittal. And then thereafter, we'll be taking that to our board for a formal resolution of approval before it ultimately gets submitted to the Public Utilities Commission. So pretty exciting progress going on there. More recently, there was legislation passed last year, Senate Bill 21264, that created a similar sort of structure and around a clean heat plan to reduce natural gas usage, retail natural gas usage for like residential heating, commercial heating, et cetera. So we're kind of at the early stages of that process, but are actively participating in some of the work groups being kicked off by the Air Pollution Control Division early this year. So beyond that, not that I'm the one to speak about this, but there's always lots of neat and exciting things going on in our demand side management programs, rate design analysis, and numerous other groups within utilities. So a lot of good work going on. Kevin, was there anything else you wanted to add on?
No, not at this time. Thanks, Chris.
I know that last month we heard from the Denver RAC about some of their exchange programs for lawn equipment. And I know I've seen CSU has some programs where they help encourage folks to do energy efficient appliances. Do you know if CSU is thinking about doing something like that? A fund for supporting that exchange?
Yeah, we do have a rebate program for energy efficient appliances, as well as like smart thermostats and things like that. So that is an ongoing program that we have, and all those details can be found on our Colorado Springs Utilities website.
That's helpful, Kevin. I think to amplify what Jessica was sort of getting at as well, is there interest or any discussions possibly in expanding that to include lawn and garden equipment, lawnmowers and such?
We haven't had any internal discussions to see if we'd be the appropriate entity to support the lawn exchange program, but we could, between us and internal, we can have those conversations to see who the appropriate entity would be to support that program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super. Yeah, we'd be happy to be part of those conversations to see how we can kind of get something like that off the ground. Mike Silverstein last month indicated that it's been fairly successful. They're trying to ramp it up even further, and there are a couple of, well, at least one state bill around the concept as well. So yeah, there's a potential where that could have a fairly significant impact.
Yeah, and I know he mentioned too the possibility of maybe entering in under their program. We'd need to probably us as a region support the funding for that, but I think that might be a really good opportunity as well, as to enter in under their program that they already have the backbone structure for, if we can find a funding mechanism for that locally.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're reading my mind. Had a good conversation with him again yesterday, and he's been very collaborative, and he's made the offer, whether it's the lawnmower trade-in rebate program or taking advantage of the marketing and outreach materials that they've put together. He's there to kind of help us out if we want to partner officially or unofficially in any or all of those programs. So yeah, I think that given the fact that they've got the capacity to help us out with things like that, I think there's some real potential there.
And it looks like Judith has raised her hand.
Thanks very much. I don't represent an entity. I represent a citizen and the League of Women Voters. But I wanted to mention with Kevin that the lawnmowers and the leaf blowers would be a logical step for utilities because the switch normally is from gasoline to battery electric ones. So to me, that would fit very well with the projects you're already doing. And it would fit even more reasonably because the new change to zoning, the Retool Colorado Springs, calls for a drastic reduction in the amount of lawn, i.e. need to use lawnmowers to replace with native plants. So to me, it's just logically that would go with utilities program. So I would encourage you, and I will make sure all the gardening groups write and suggest it as well. It's just sort of a natural partnership. Thank you.
Well, and I know that I brought it up again, just because we've got legislation coming up that is partially a discussion that's been happening at the state about should the state be funding this? Should they be requiring it? I'm gonna pull this up.
I was thinking while we're in the weeds on this, we might as well keep talking about the Senate bill that's out there.
Yeah, I just have to find it. Give me just a moment.
Andy, could you or somebody start with a summary of the bill?
Yeah, so it's a Senate bill there. It is 138. Effectively would, if I recall, I've got some notes here as well, would basically ban the sale of gas-powered lawn equipment in the non-attainment areas of the state by 2030. And then it also has a provision to phase out voluntarily existing gas-powered lawnmowers and other lawn equipment between now and 2030. With the way it's structured right now, it's a little bit clunky. It would be a tax credit that basically you would have to claim on your following year's taxes that you file. If you bought a electric powered lawnmower, for instance. The conversation I had with Mike Silverstein yesterday, he expressed that they have concerns about that this is more difficult because this is a tax credit. What the rack up in the Denver area does is they have basically a rebate. They give you $150 rebate that you can take to Home Depot and use that to get an electric lawnmower back. But you also have to trade in under the rack program, trade in your existing gas powered lawnmower. This state bill doesn't require that. It's basically silent on that issue. Those are the two big elements, I think, of the bill. Can't buy a gas powered lawnmower in non-attainment areas by 2030, and then a phased tax incentive program between now and then. Anything else, Jessica, that you recall?
Those are really the big ones from this one. And again, it brought the thought up is should the state be trying to fund these programs? Should they be local funded? As a discussion from the AQTC, is it practical? Will it happen? Should it happen? What do you guys think?
And one more note that I'll mention as well, even though the phasing out where you can't buy a gas powered mower by 2030 in non-attainment areas, the tax credit provision to buy a new electric lawnmower, that applies statewide. That's not just within non-attainment areas. So that would be something that we could do here in El Paso County as well.
Andy, do you have data on the number of gas-powered motors and leaf blowers there are in the county now? Because gardeners have asked me that. That can't possibly make any difference. There aren't that many. And I said, I have not a clue. But do you have any data on that?
It's a great question, and I don't, unfortunately. One challenge that we've pointed out in this bill as well is that it basically, the way it's designed, it's intended for individuals to be able to get that rebate. It doesn't specifically say for lawn and garden businesses, but that's sort of the implication, but it's a little bit clunky the way it's worded in the draft bill. It also doesn't apply to public sector operations like if you,
the Parks Department with their massive
Parks and Rec, right. CDOT maintaining the medians in right-of-ways on highways all around the state. You know, things like that, they would not be eligible to apply for this because it's a tax credit
Wow.
structure. You know, golf courses that are maintained, either private or even public sector golf courses, it's a little bit unclear as far as how they would apply or not.
This is Katie Helm. I can give an update for City of Fountain if it's an okay time.
That'd be wonderful.
Okay, just continuing the conversation since we're talking about lawnmowers. That's just to give a little background. So I'm kind of a catch-all for all sustainability programs. My primary focus is water and energy efficiency, but I also do things in the realm of air quality and landfill diversion. So with that being said, we have had internal conversations about creating a rebate for electric lawnmowers, but just with it being me in my department and myself being the only one, it is hard to get that off the ground, but it's definitely something that's on our list. And similar to CSU, we offer rebates for energy efficient appliances as well. Aside from that, we recently received a $1.35 million grant from House Bill 21-1253 to install a solar array, and that's going to be at one of our electric substation locations. But City of Fountain provides electricity through wholesale purchase, so this is going to be our first time generating electricity, so it's very exciting. It's going to be enough to offset the electric needs at all 10 of our city buildings, and then just under 3,000 streetlights, which is all the streetlights for the city. That install should be completed by the end of the year, but it's very exciting. Aside from that, we always participate, or for the past 4 or 5 years, I think, we've participated in the Energy Saving Trees program through the Arbor Day Foundation. And primarily what we sought to do when we first partnered with them is to promote energy savings from the shade that is projected onto the home when the tree is at maturity, but we also naturally achieve some improved air quality from that program. Historically, we provide about 130 trees annually to our participants.
Neat.
Hey, this is Rick again. I could give an update on some state activities, and this could be more of something just to kind of keep an eye out for in the future. But as you all might be aware of, the state has a few different enterprises that are being rolled out. So basically at CPACG, there's a new clean fleet enterprise. And the purpose of this enterprise is to support fleet replacement. For example, like delivery trucks, transportation network companies such as Uber and Lyft, and they're usually called TNCs. You ever see that acronym? It took me a while to remember what that stands for, but and then also school buses and other light, medium, and heavy duty vehicles. Both, you know, for the co-benefits of meeting climate greenhouse gas reduction goals and other general air quality goals like ozone. And yeah, so this enterprise and the other ones that I'm talking about are really in the beginning stages of being rolled out. So I can't really speak to like this much money will be offered this year and then, you know, this much in the next year, but it will be millions of dollars between all these enterprises, hundreds of millions of dollars over so many years. And then CDOT is also heading up the Clean Transit Enterprise, which I'm on that board or committee. And that enterprise is tasked with supporting electrification of public transit specifically. And the Energy Office has a community access enterprise. And that enterprise is building charging infrastructure in communities across the state, excuse me, to support electric vehicles and e-bike adoption, really with a focus on low and moderate income communities. So there will be more to come from these enterprises, over the course of the coming months. And, we can forward any information about funding opportunities to you all. So hopefully we can get some funds flowing in the Pikes Peak area. And, there's also a non-attainment area enterprise, which right now it only applies to the Denver Northport Range ozone non-attainment area. And that enterprise is basically looking at projects that will reduce traffic, including different demand projects that will encourage alternatives to driving. But I think they're also looking at retrofitting construction equipment, and some other things, like even like planting trees along certain corridors. But I'm mentioning that because I think that, if the Colorado Springs area ever became a non-attainment area, they would probably be eligible for funds under this. But hopefully that doesn't happen. No one wants that to happen. Hopefully, but if that's the case, maybe someday down the road, funding would be available through that group. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is, I'll put a link in the chat for Air Quality Awareness Week, which is May 2nd through 6th this year. And basically, as a refresher from last year, EPA and some other federal agencies basically host Air Quality Awareness Week every year, first week of May usually. There's daily themes, but at the state, sometimes we follow the themes, and sometimes we just use this week to promote all things air quality. And typically, we ask the governor to sign a proclamation proclaiming Air Quality Awareness Week, supporting our goals. And we also develop a social media guide that we share with, I think we shared it with PPACG in the past, and like our partners at local public health departments. So folks can basically use the guide to post on their social media throughout the week, with the intent to just spread awareness about air quality, things that the department's doing, our air quality alerts that go out, just spreading message about public health, environmental health. And, we usually like to do some events out in public, like either doing a presentation, like at a school or university, or even doing webinars. We've also in Denver tabled at different high traffic areas, such as like downtown near the Capitol building. There's an area that has food trucks where hundreds of people go get their lunch. So it's a really good opportunity to engage with members of the public about air quality. And, we would be interested if there's any good locations in Colorado Springs, trying to set something up, or maybe even partnering with you all down there. We're working on, if we have any good kind of stuff to give away, like water bottles and anything that could be useful to the public. And we have a meteorologist, a scientist who does these pretty neat demonstrations to kind of, they're more geared towards children, but sometimes adults like them as well. It's fun, it's a fun way to get out there and engage with the public. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's in May, but we're planning now because time flies, and we have to get all of our ducks in a row early on. So yeah, I think it could be a great opportunity, to do something out there. And if anything, sometimes it's a good opportunity not only to engage with the public, but for all of our partner organizations to get together, you know, and it's a good chance to kind of strengthen our working relationships with folks, and maybe make new connections.
That's really good, Rick. I appreciate that. And Jessica, I would even suggest maybe that bullet that you put in there, does the AQTC want to engage? I would say, how does the AQTC want to engage with their Air Quality Awareness Week? And I think you're spot on, Rick. It's probably good that we get started now to figure out what that's going to look like that week and see what kind of engagement and with which partners we can pull in. I've had some good kind of side conversations the past several weeks. Email exchanges and whatnot with a handful of folks like Doug Price at Visit COS and with some outdoor recreational advocates that wanted to get this very topic, this issue about our ozone levels on their radar to try to get them a little more activated and involved to help us out. Because obviously if we end up in non-attainment, then we continue to have bad air quality overall, that's going to impact our recreational and visitor industries. So yeah, I think it's probably something that Jessica and I we can put our heads together, and if others on the committee want to get involved with this too, we can start scoping out what our engagement might be for that week.
Andy, this is Judith again.
Sounds good.
So the League of Women Voters statewide is supporting the Clean Fleet enterprise. And I just wanted to throw out there that in addition to Amazon and all those delivery trucks, it's also food deliveries, which have increased exponentially during COVID. Again, do we have any data? Do we have data on how many of those Amazon Prime trucks have suddenly appeared in our area? Do we have data on the food delivery trucks? Do we have any kind of data?
It's a great question and would defer to some others and maybe from state databases for vehicle registrations, possibly, but I'm just sort of speculating here. But if others know where we could hunt down data sources like that, we're all ears.
Well, on some days, it reminds me of a movie from last century called Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I mean, those little Prime trucks are everywhere, just like it really taken over. Yeah. And in the Clean Transit Enterprise, which we also support, I was really amazed to find in talking with a friend who's on the D11 school board that they didn't seem to be aware of the fact that there are all of these federal programs that would help them buy electric buses. And now they seem to be quite excited about that. How is that? I don't know that that's the responsibility of the COG or anyone else, but I mean, it seems to me an important thing to do to alert those people that there are those options and that they are. And in the same vein, some of the older neighborhoods in Colorado Springs are very concerned about the proposed bus rapid transit program that Mountain Metro's laying out. And one of the concerns is in an early meeting, they said they thought for the moment they would go with diesel buses and hope to transfer to electric in the future. Well, for an area that maybe isn't in non-attainment, but could be soon, the thought that they're going to go ahead with BRTs with diesel buses, I found just actually stupefying. So it might be worthwhile asking the people from Mountain Metro and Transit in the city if they're seriously considering something that would add diesel buses. That seems to be going the wrong way. Just throw that out.
Okay, good suggestions on the MMT, their BRT project. Not sure kind of where they are in the planning process. Not sure if John is still on the line. We were involved in some of those conversations early on, but yeah, probably there's, I think, a lot of time until that would actually materialize. So there's probably some conversations that can still be had around the vehicle fleet, but obviously that's going to be a city and MMT decision, but we should have the heads up on that. Really good point on the school bus electrification possibilities. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to bring that up as well, that you've been engaging with District 11. And I think that actually is something that, as far as raising awareness and convening the parties, it is something that we, as an air quality planning organization, could certainly at least put the word out to the other school districts and let them know, hey, there are a lot of opportunities right now, if you're not aware already, to do some fleet conversion planning and actual purchasing here fairly soon. And that could have a real impact.
Yes.
Having worked in some other locations where they also a little bit further and would have kind of anti-promotional, anti-idling policies. If you're waiting to pick up your kids, don't leave your car running for 10 minutes or whatever. So there was some outreach that happened with school districts around, issues like that as well that could have an impact. So we can maybe put that, if there's interest, we could at least put that on our list of items here under the Ozone Advance plan, that we could at least get the word out to school districts to let them know what they could do to play their part.
Andy, I'll try to stop here, but if you all could keep a statistics on the openings of new drive-ins, fast food drive-ins, there seems to be at least one a week, and sometimes multiple ones a week that are opening in Colorado Springs. And so I would like to know to what degree those contribute. People in line waiting to get their coffee or waiting to get their hamburger. I mean, they are really multiplying at least like one a week in our community. It seems to me we're disadvantaged. I mean, that's why we were known as fast food city. We seem to be committed to keeping up that image with more and more fast food chains, but that has to have an impact on air quality with all those people waiting with running cars in line, waiting for their coffee or hamburger. Again, statistics. Do we have statistics?
Rick, it looks like you have your hand raised. Rick Coffin.
Oh, yes. Well, this last discussion that was brought up by Judith reminded me of another program that's run through my office at CPACG. It's funded through a federal grant program called the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act, or DERA, DERA, and we contract out with an NGO to administer the program, and I'll put a link in the chat box here. But let's see. But basically, that this program in like really focuses on doing electric or hybrid projects, hybrid electric replacement projects. But you were talking about the school bus replacements. Now, under this program, school buses could also be retrofitted. Say if a school district doesn't have the funds to, put forth a matching amount under the program, because electric school buses can be pretty pricey. In that case, there are some technologies like different filters that help filter out some of the harmful things in diesel exhaust, and also like auxiliary power units that can keep the bus heated or cooled, so the driver doesn't have to keep it idling. And those projects are relatively inexpensive, and this program would cover I don't think it covers 100% of the cost, but pretty close. I think maybe 75%. And yeah, there's a big range of eligible projects under this program. And if anyone has questions about that, I think there's contact information on that website, or folks can just reach out to me directly if they're eligible, or if they're interested in projects that aren't listed on this website. But like another thing, if someone has a diesel powered mower, like or a diesel powered tractor, that's eligible to be replaced under this program. And I think we have a few from up in Weld County and one out in maybe Crested Butte, some tractors that are being replaced. So every little bit helps. Yeah, so just wanted to mention that too.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything else they want to share about updates, things that are happening, or discussions? Did any of this make you wonder? Are we doing? Could we do? Have we thought about? Yes.
It's Victoria again. So I just wanted to highlight that we have just opened our Falcon Park and Ride facility.
So.
And that is a park and ride that is on US 24 and Meridian Road. And so it is ready and open for business. If anybody
Hey,
wants,
this is my questioning day. Do we have a map, a map of the area with all the park and rides in it? Or Andy?
I think we might, I don't think it's a PPACG product, but I do think possibly Mustang is the one who would have one to every park and ride that they run through.
That would make sense for the Mustang routes, but that wouldn't include the military out east. I mean, that would be a really useful tool if the city, I guess the city and the county together. I don't know if there would be other ones in the county, but that would be a useful tool.
We can check with MMT. They might be a natural owner of something like that. So yeah, we can ask them.
I went silent because I'm actually writing a quick note to our mobility coordinator being like, we already have this? Do you know of it? So, as you all know, we're all trying. Okay. I'm going to say, does anyone have anything else they want to add on this topic on the Ozone Advance and what you've done or what you think we could look at? Okay. Then our next item is member discussion. What things do folks need to be aware of that's happening? Or what's going on right now?
If others are still thinking or reaching for the mute button, I'll kind of get things started. I meant to mention this earlier and I forgot. And actually not sure if we shared the final letter that we sent to the state or not with the AQTC, but we took the letter that you reviewed last week and made or last month rather, and made a recommendation on. We took that to the board in, when was that, February? The weeks are all running together. Yeah, I think it was the February meeting when they approved it. With some modifications, we included the language around the Western Governors Association and their policy recommendations around background ozone and international emissions coming in. But yeah, the board really appreciated everybody's efforts in pulling that together and getting that submitted onto the state. It was hand delivered to the governor's office. So we haven't heard anything back yet. Rick was going to follow up with you and Dina and others and just see if there's any chatter or next steps or any other conversations that we need to have here in the short term. But yeah, we'll get that out if we haven't done so already, the final version of that letter to everybody.
And I'll send out just after this meeting the final version of that letter, as well as just those quick questions that I wrote down about, do we want to engage in Air Quality Awareness Week and how do we want to do that? So you'll all see an email from me following this, as well as I'll also include Rick's links from today.
Jessica, I just had one more thought. The Colorado Springs Utilities is evaluating a remote work program that they're starting to implement to allow certain personnel upon approval to work remotely. So that'll have an impact on reduced traffic coming into work as well.
That's good. All of those measures help for sure.
Okay. Items for future AQTC meetings. Are there any items that you guys would like us to bring up? Otherwise, I will let you know that I will be bringing back to you Air Quality Awareness Week at our next meeting. And depending on what we're seeing at the legislative session, during the legislative session, you may be hearing something from us on that at our next meeting. Are there any items you guys would like to be getting an update on or learn more about from PPACG or that we can ask for an update from others?
Jessica, this is Judith again. We just had a statewide transportation meeting yesterday, so it's on my mind. But one of the bills, and I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, that would give tax benefits to employers. One, if they had over 100 employees and they had mandated or supported alternatives to single car vehicles, is another one for providing lower paid employees with electric bikes, where the purchase of a car and insurance would be expensive. I'm just wondering if we have any companies that we know of, and I would include utilities in that, who do have programs like that, who encourage their employees to use alternative modes or to carpool, and if there are any benefits. The university I can speak to is one example. There are privileges, both parking privileges primarily for carpools, but do we know of other businesses or public institutions in our area that have comparable programs to encourage non-single-use vehicle driving?
I know that there are several local governments who have engaged in the Pike Ride program, sponsoring stops and locations near their offices to encourage that for downtown and local engagement.
Providing bus passes for their employees?
Not bus, but engaging in the Pike Ride for downtown for local. But I'm trying to think. I'm sure others have. We could probably check with the Chamber of Commerce and see if they know.
It's sort of pathetic if we don't have more. I'm sure that Colorado College must do something comparable to UCCS, and I would hope that Pikes Peak Community College would as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Is there anything else?
Yeah, Jessica, one thing I was going to offer to present on, maybe, I'm not sure if next month would be good, but if not, at least in April or maybe May, presenting on Colorado Springs, the carbon monoxide maintenance area. So since that maintenance area and a number of other ones in the state have reached 20 years or, gone beyond 20 years of continued maintenance of the carbon monoxide standard now, the state is working on formally requesting that EPA designate these areas from maintenance to attainment. Because apparently it would be nice if that just automatically happens at the 20-year mark, but it doesn't happen. The state has to formally request that, which means the Air Quality Control Commission has to basically vote to do that. And I think there's even a legislative review that happens. But yeah, I think the commission is planning on doing that in August. So there's still a little time before us, but I could just present on, the background, the history of carbon monoxide levels in the area, which have been very low now for decades, and what it means, to be redesignated completely as attainment.
Outstanding.
Yeah, good, Rick, that would be good. That would be helpful. Just, we knew that was sort of hanging over our heads. So yeah, appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah, and whether it's next month or following, that's fine. We'll work with you. Not a problem. What I was going to suggest as well for next month's meeting is we'll write up, obviously, the stuff we talked about today that could be part of the Ozone Advance plan and have it kind of spelled out so we can identify what our short-term next steps might be. I'm fine using that as a way to kind of hold us accountable for what we're going to work on for this year and beyond. So we'll flesh it out a little bit further and bring back next month what we talked about today.
Okay. Well, our final agenda item is just calendar of events and meetings. So you'll see at the end of your packet, you've got our next meetings. AQTC is scheduled for March the 23rd. 1 o'clock as always. There's information in here on some of the upcoming classes and other meetings. So if anyone has any questions about any of those things, please let me know. And then, does anyone have anything else before I adjourn us?
So I've been frantically looking to see what APCD stands for, where apparently Rick is from, and I could not. What is APCD, please?
Oh, it's I thought I messaged you back in the chat
Oh,
box.
I
but, it's the
can't-
air
I
pollution
can't-
control.
Go ahead.
It's the Air Pollution Control Division.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. That's okay. That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well then, thank you so much all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. You'll get that email from me coming out soon with all of the notes from today and links that Rick was so kind to provide. And other than that, thank you all and have a wonderful very end of February.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you all.
Thank you.